This is not a speech to comfort you. This is a speech to activate you. A disciplined life is not built by wishing, waiting, or hoping. It is built by decisions made when no one is watching. Power is not loud. Power is consistent, and consistency is born from discipline. If you want a powerful life, you must accept one truth immediately. No one is coming to save you. The day you accept full responsibility is the day your life begins to change. Here are the rules. Decide once and let the decision end the argument forever. Most people exhaust their lives not from work, but from constant negotiation with themselves. Every morning they reopen the same debate. Should I act or delay, push or rest, commit or retreat? This daily indecision drains power before the day even begins. A disciplined life starts when you eliminate that internal courtroom and issue a final verdict. When you decide once, you conserve mental energy and redirect it into execution. Power is not created by repeated choices. It is created by unwavering commitment. A decision made once becomes a law. A decision made daily becomes a suggestion. Suggestions are easy to ignore. Laws shape behavior automatically. When you decide who you are and what you stand for, you remove the need for motivation. Motivation is emotional and unstable. Decisions are structural and permanent. The strongest people are not those who feel inspired every day, but those who have already decided and therefore no longer debate. Indecision is a hidden form of weakness. It feels harmless, even thoughtful, but it quietly steals momentum. Each time you hesitate, you teach your mind that hesitation is acceptable. Over time, delay becomes a habit, and hesitation becomes identity. The mind learns that commitment is optional, and once that lesson is learned, discipline collapses. Decide once, and you interrupt this pattern at its root. When a person decides once, something remarkable happens. Resistance decreases. The brain stops searching for exits. Action becomes simpler, faster, cleaner. There is no emotional drama because the outcome is already determined. You are not asking yourself whether you should act. You are acting because the decision has already been made. This is how high performers move with speed while others stall in thought. Look closely at any powerful individual and you will notice a common trait. They have non-negotiable standards. They do not wake up wondering whether they will honor their word, train their body, sharpen their mind, or do the work required. Those questions were answered long ago. The daily routine is not a battle, it is a continuation. This is the quiet strength of decided people. They do not appear rushed or frantic. They appear calm because clarity removes chaos. Deciding once also eliminates excuses. Excuses thrive in ambiguity. When rules are flexible, justification sneaks in. When standards are fixed, excuses have nowhere to stand. You stop asking how you feel and start honoring what you chose. Feelings change, decisions remain. This is the difference between people who start strong and those who finish strong. A life without firm decisions is a life at the mercy of mood. Energy rises and falls, confidence fluctuates, and progress becomes inconsistent. But when the decision is locked in, moods lose authority. You act tired. You act afraid. You act uncertain. Action no longer waits for ideal conditions. It moves forward because it has permission to do so. Deciding once also builds self-respect. Every kept decision is a vote for your own credibility. Every time you follow through, you strengthen trust with yourself. Over time, this internal trust compounds into confidence. Confidence is not loud belief. It is quiet certainty born from consistency. When you know you will do what you decided, doubt fades naturally. Many people confuse flexibility with strength. In reality, too much flexibility creates weakness. Power comes from structure. Structure creates focus. Focus creates results. Deciding once provides that structure. It draws a clear line between who you are and who you are no longer willing to be. That line simplifies life. Simplicity sharpens force. The moment you decide once, you step into leadership over yourself, and self-leadership is the foundation of all authority. If you cannot lead your own actions, no external success will sustain you. The world responds to those who are internally aligned. When your thoughts, decisions, and actions move in one direction, life stops pushing back. There is a cost to deciding once. You lose the comfort of options. You give up the illusion of escape. But what you gain is far greater: momentum, clarity, and inner power. Options feel safe, but they keep you small. Decisions feel heavy, but they make you strong. Every undisciplined life is full of repeated questions. Every powerful life is built on answered ones. Decide once what your standards are. Decide once what effort you require from yourself. Decide once what kind of person you will be when things are difficult. After that, let action handle the rest. When the decision is final, the path becomes inevitable. Win the morning, and the rest of the day has no choice but to follow. The first moments after you wake up are not neutral, they are decisive. They set the rhythm your mind and body will obey for the next 16 hours. A chaotic morning creates a scattered life, while a disciplined morning builds quiet dominance. Control the morning, and you do not chase the day. You command it. Power does not suddenly appear at noon. It is cultivated in the silence of early hours when most people are still asleep or drifting without direction. Mornings reveal priorities with brutal honesty. The way you rise, move, and focus before the world demands your attention shows whether you lead yourself or react to circumstances. When the morning controls you, everything else will. Messages, noise, urgency, and other people's agendas rush in and steal your focus. But when you control the morning, you decide the tempo. You act before you are acted upon. That single shift separates disciplined individuals from those who spend life responding instead of creating. A strong morning is not about complexity, it is about intention. It begins with the refusal to delay. The moment you choose to rise when the alarm sounds, you establish authority over comfort. That decision may look small, but it sends a powerful signal to the mind. Commands are to be followed, not debated. Each morning you win this battle. Self-command strengthens. Each morning you lose it. Self-trust erodes. Control in the morning builds momentum. Momentum is invisible, but it is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. When you complete difficult tasks early, the mind enters a state of forward motion. Confidence grows not from thinking, but from movement. By the time obstacles appear later in the day, you are already in motion, already disciplined, already ahead. Problems feel lighter when you are moving forward instead of starting from zero. Mornings are also when the mind is most impressionable. Before distractions flood in, your thoughts are raw and receptive. What you allow into your mind at this time becomes the lens through which you see the day. If you begin with disorder, you invite confusion. If you begin with purpose, clarity follows. A controlled morning is a mental fortress that protects focus from invasion. Physical movement in the morning reinforces mental command. When the body moves with intention, the mind sharpens. Blood flows, energy rises, and hesitation fades. This is not about appearance or vanity. It is about readiness. A body that has been activated early does not collapse under pressure later. Strength built at dawn becomes resilience at dusk. The morning also teaches patience. Discipline practiced daily trains the nervous system to remain calm under effort. When you work before comfort, before reward, you condition yourself to act without immediate gratification. This ability separates leaders from followers. The world rewards those who can delay pleasure in exchange for progress, and the morning is the training ground for that skill. People who control their mornings do not rely on willpower all day. They front-load discipline so the rest of the day requires less resistance. When key actions are completed early, the mind relaxes without becoming lazy. Stress decreases because obligations shrink. The day feels lighter not because life is easy, but because the hardest work has already been handled. There is a quiet confidence that comes from a mastered morning. It is not arrogance or noise, it is stability. You know you have already kept a promise to yourself before the world made its first demand. That knowledge becomes armor. External chaos loses its power when your internal structure is intact. Many people search for control by trying to manage outcomes, other people, or circumstances. True control begins earlier and closer. It begins with your alarm clock, your first movement, your first thought. When you control these, you indirectly control everything that follows. The day may still challenge you, but it will not dominate you. A disciplined morning also creates identity. Repetition turns behavior into self-image. When you rise with purpose daily, you no longer see yourself as someone who tries, you see yourself as someone who acts. That identity shapes future decisions automatically. You do not force discipline anymore, you express it. The cost of controlling your morning is temporary discomfort. The cost of not controlling it is a lifetime of reaction. One builds strength, the other builds regret. The choice is made daily, but the consequences accumulate permanently. A life that feels out of control often begins with mornings that are surrendered. A life that feels powerful is built one dawn at a time. Control the morning, and you will no longer chase time, motivation, or opportunity. You will meet them prepared, focused, and already in command. Act even when every emotion tells you to stop. Most lives are ruled by feelings, and that is why most lives remain small. Emotion is powerful, but it is unstable. It rises and falls without warning, offering energy one moment and withdrawal the next. If action waits for emotion, progress becomes accidental. Discipline begins when action is separated from mood, when movement continues regardless of how it feels. Power is built by those who act without asking permission from their emotions. Emotion was never designed to lead, it was designed to respond. When you place emotion in control, you surrender direction to something temporary. Fear will exaggerate risk. Comfort will argue for delay. Doubt will question decisions already made. Acting without emotion does not mean acting without awareness. It means refusing to let feelings decide your behavior. You acknowledge them, then move anyway. The strongest people are not emotionally numb. They feel deeply. The difference is that they do not obey every feeling. They understand that emotion is weather, not a compass. Weather changes, direction must not. When action is anchored to purpose instead of feeling, consistency replaces chaos. You stop starting and stopping, surging and collapsing. You move forward steadily, which is far more powerful than occasional bursts of passion. Waiting to feel ready is one of the most subtle traps. Readiness is a sensation that rarely appears before action. Confidence does not precede effort, it follows it. The act of moving creates clarity. The act of beginning dissolves resistance. When you act without emotion, you break the illusion that you must feel a certain way to perform. Performance creates feeling, not the reverse. Emotion-driven action is exhausting. One day you push hard, the next day you collapse. This cycle creates guilt, then avoidance, then self-doubt. Acting without emotion stabilizes effort. It removes drama from discipline. Work becomes routine instead of heroic. That is where real power lives, not in intensity, but in reliability. Every meaningful achievement requires discomfort. If emotion had veto power, nothing difficult would ever be completed. Fear would stop growth. Boredom would stop mastery. Frustration would stop learning. Acting without emotion is the decision to tolerate discomfort without resistance. It is the ability to remain calm while doing hard things over and over until they are no longer hard. This principle applies beyond work. Relationships, health, leadership, and personal growth all demand action when emotion resists. Saying the difficult truth, showing up when tired, maintaining standards when tempted to compromise. Each time you act without emotion, you reinforce self-command. The mind learns that feelings are not in charge. That lesson compounds into inner authority. People often mistake emotionless action for coldness. In reality, it creates freedom. When emotion no longer controls behavior, you are no longer dragged by it. You experience feelings fully without being owned by them. You feel fear without retreating. You feel fatigue without quitting. You feel doubt without stopping. That is emotional maturity, not suppression. Acting without emotion also sharpens judgment. When decisions are not rushed by excitement or distorted by fear, they become clearer. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of flinch. This calm decisiveness is rare, and rarity creates advantage. In a world ruled by impulse, the composed individual stands out as powerful. Discipline without emotion builds trust with yourself. Each time you act despite resistance, you prove that your word matters more than your comfort. Over time, this trust becomes confidence. You stop questioning whether you will follow through. You already know the answer. That certainty quiets the mind and conserves energy for what truly matters. Emotion will always be present. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to demote it. Let emotion inform you, but never command you. Action guided by principle outlasts action driven by feeling. Passion fades. Principles remain. Those who master this rule gain a decisive edge. They do not wait for the right mood, the right moment, or the right feeling. They move because movement is required. While others hesitate, they progress. While others negotiate, they execute. Over time, this gap widens until the difference becomes undeniable. A powerful life is not emotional, it is intentional. And intention is proven through action that continues whether the heart is light or heavy. Choose pain now or be forced to carry it later. Every meaningful life is built on this exchange. Pain is unavoidable, but timing is a choice. Those who refuse temporary pain invite permanent struggle. Those who accept discomfort early earn strength, clarity, and control. Discipline is not the absence of pain, it is the decision to face it voluntarily. Power grows the moment you stop running from what is hard and start using it as training. Temporary pain is effort, resistance, fatigue, and doubt. It shows up when you push beyond habit and comfort. Most people retreat at this moment, mistaking discomfort for danger. But discomfort is not a warning, it is a signal that growth is occurring. The body resists change, the mind resists effort, and both protest when you demand more. That protest is not a reason to stop. It is evidence that you are leaving weakness behind. Avoided pain does not disappear. It waits. It compounds. Missed discipline becomes regret. Skipped effort becomes limitation. What you refuse to confront today returns tomorrow with interest. This is why undisciplined lives feel heavy. The weight is not the work they avoided. It is the consequences they carry instead. Accepting temporary pain builds resilience. Each time you endure discomfort without escape, you train your nervous system to remain calm under stress. Hard moments stop feeling overwhelming. Pressure becomes familiar. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. This transformation is not dramatic, but it is permanent. Strength is built quietly through repeated exposure to difficulty. There is also clarity in pain. Comfort dulls awareness, challenge sharpens it. When you face discomfort, priorities become clear. Excuses fall away. You see what matters and what does not. Pain strips life down to essentials, and in doing so, it reveals truth. That truth becomes guidance, and guidance becomes power. Those who accept temporary pain early gain a long-term advantage. While others delay, they progress. While others protect comfort, they invest in growth. Over time, the gap widens. The disciplined individual moves forward with less effort because their capacity has expanded. The undisciplined individual struggles with small tasks because their tolerance has shrunk. Temporary pain also builds self-respect. Each time you choose effort over ease, you reinforce trust with yourself. You become someone who can be relied upon, especially in difficult moments. This internal trust is rare, and it changes how you carry yourself. Confidence grows not from success alone, but from knowing you can endure discomfort without breaking. Many fear pain because they associate it with loss. In truth, voluntary pain is a form of gain. You trade short-term discomfort for long-term freedom, freedom from weakness, freedom from fear, freedom from the constant anxiety of avoiding hard things. The pain ends, the strength remains. Discipline demands sacrifice, but sacrifice is simply delayed reward. The effort you invest today returns as ease tomorrow. The training you endure now becomes competence later. What feels heavy at first becomes light through repetition. Pain that is accepted intentionally transforms into skill, endurance, and confidence. A life without chosen pain becomes a life full of forced pain. Health neglected becomes illness. Skills ignored become dependency. Standards compromised become regret. The pain of effort is brief. The pain of consequence is relentless. This is not philosophy, it is pattern. It repeats in every area of life without exception. Those who understand this rule stop asking how to avoid pain and start asking which pain is worth choosing. That question changes everything. It turns suffering into strategy. It converts hardship into investment. The moment pain becomes purposeful, it loses its power to intimidate. Temporary pain also humbles the ego. It reminds you that growth requires submission to process. There are no shortcuts that bypass effort. This humility protects you from arrogance and keeps you learning. The disciplined person remains teachable because they accept that mastery is earned through repeated struggle. Over time, pain loses its sting. What once required courage becomes routine. This is how extraordinary capacity is built, not through ease, but through repetition of difficulty until difficulty no longer dominates. A powerful life is not painless. It is purposeful, and purpose gives pain meaning, direction, and an endpoint. Protect your mind as if your entire future depends on it, because it does. Everything you will ever build is first constructed in the mind. Before there is action, there is thought. Before there is discipline, there is belief. Before there is victory or failure, there is an idea accepted or rejected. A guarded mind is a powerful mind, and an unguarded mind is an open door through which doubt, fear, distraction, and weakness enter freely. If you do not control what enters your mind, you will never fully control what leaves your hands. The mind is constantly being trained, whether you are aware of it or not. Every image you consume, every conversation you entertain, every thought you allow to repeat is shaping your internal world. Most people live mentally undisciplined. Ned lives. They allow noise to flood their thinking, opinions to replace judgment, and distractions to fracture focus. Over time, this mental clutter weakens decision-making and drains inner strength. Power fades not because of lack of ability, but because of lack of mental protection. A guarded mind is selective. It does not consume everything placed in front of it. It questions influence. It filters information. It understands that not everything loud is important and not everything popular is true. Discipline begins when you stop feeding your mind whatever is easiest and start feeding it what makes you stronger. Just as the body becomes what it repeatedly eats, the mind becomes what it repeatedly entertains. Negative thoughts rarely arrive as enemies. They arrive disguised as realism, caution, or harmless entertainment. Doubt whispers instead of shouts. Fear disguises itself as logic. Distraction pretends to be relaxation. If you are not vigilant, these forces settle in quietly and begin shaping behavior. Guarding the mind means noticing these intrusions early and refusing to give them residence. Focus is one of the greatest weapons of disciplined individuals. It is also one of the most attacked. A scattered mind cannot produce powerful results. When attention is divided, effort weakens. When effort weakens, confidence erodes. Guarding your mind means protecting your attention fiercely. It means deciding what deserves your mental energy and what does not. Every moment spent distracted is a moment not spent building strength. The stories you tell yourself matter. Repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs become identity. If your internal dialogue is careless, your actions will reflect that carelessness. A guarded mind corrects itself. When weak thoughts appear, they are challenged. When limiting beliefs surface, they are questioned. This is not denial, it is discipline. You are not required to accept every thought you have. Environment plays a powerful role in mental condition. The people you listen to, the media you consume, and the spaces you occupy all influence your thinking. Guarding your mind sometimes requires distance. Distance from negativity. Distance from constant opinion. Distance from environments that reward laziness and excuse weakness. This distance is not arrogance, it is self-respect. Mental discipline also requires periods of silence. Noise overwhelms clarity. Constant stimulation prevents reflection. Without reflection, you lose direction. Silence allows you to hear your own thoughts clearly and correct them when necessary. A powerful mind is not constantly entertained, it is regularly sharpened. Guarding the mind does not mean avoiding challenge. It means choosing challenge intentionally. Growth comes from pressure, but uncontrolled pressure creates damage. You choose what stretches you. You choose what strengthens you. You do not let chaos decide for you. This control is what separates those who grow from those who break. Fear weakens its grip when the mind is guarded. Fear thrives in imagination unchecked by discipline. When thoughts are managed, fear loses exaggeration. Problems become measurable instead of monstrous. Calm replaces panic. This calm does not remove difficulty, it makes difficulty manageable. A guarded mind is consistent. It does not rise and fall with every opinion or circumstance. Stability creates reliability, and reliability creates power. When your mind is steady, your actions are steady. When your actions are steady, results become predictable. Predictable results create confidence, and confidence fuels further discipline. Many people attempt to change their lives by changing behavior alone. Behavior is important, but it is downstream from thought. Lasting change begins when the mind is protected from corruption and strengthened by intention. When the mind is disciplined, behavior follows naturally. This discipline requires daily effort. The mind must be guarded Friday, not occasionally. Weakness enters through repetition, and strength is built the same way. Each day you protect your thoughts, your focus sharpens. Each day you allow disorder, clarity fades. A powerful life begins with a mind that refuses to be careless, refuses to be invaded, and refuses to be weakened by neglect. Guard it relentlessly, and everything built upon it will stand stronger. Leave what weakens you, even when it feels familiar. No amount of personal discipline can fully survive in an environment that rewards weakness. Your surroundings are not neutral, they are shaping you every day. The places you stay, the people you listen to, the standards you tolerate all press quietly against your behavior. When an environment is weak, it slowly erodes strength, no matter how determined you are. Power grows fastest when the environment supports it, and it withers when the environment resists it. Most people overestimate willpower and underestimate influence. They believe they can rise while remaining surrounded by distraction, negativity, and low standards. Over time, the environment always wins. It normalizes delay. It excuses mediocrity. It makes discipline feel extreme and weakness feel acceptable. Without realizing it, you begin adjusting downward, not because you chose to, but because you adapted. Weak environments rarely announce themselves. They feel comfortable, they feel social, they feel harmless. But comfort can be a slow poison. When everyone around you avoids effort, effort begins to feel unnatural. When excuses are common, accountability feels uncomfortable. When standards are low, excellence feels isolating. This pressure pulls quietly but constantly. Cutting ties does not always mean cutting people. Sometimes it means cutting habits, locations, routines, and exposure. It means removing yourself from places where your worst tendencies are encouraged and your best qualities are ignored. Growth requires friction in the right direction. Weak environments remove that friction and replace it with ease, and ease breeds stagnation. Your environment teaches you what is normal. If laziness is normal, discipline feels extreme. If distraction is normal, focus feels unnatural. If complaining is normal, responsibility feels heavy. Guarding your growth requires redefining what normal looks like in your daily life. That redefinition often demands separation from what you once tolerated. There is resistance when you begin to change your environment. Familiar places and people will pull you back, not out of malice, but out of discomfort. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your discipline challenges their habits. This tension is unavoidable. Choosing strength sometimes requires choosing loneliness temporarily. Strong environments do not pamper you. They challenge you. They expect more from you. They reflect standards you must rise to meet. When you place yourself in such an environment, discipline becomes easier because it is reinforced instead of resisted. You no longer have to fight every impulse alone. The environment begins fighting with you. Weak environments drain energy. They fill the mind with noise and the day with distraction. Time disappears without progress. At the end of the day, you feel tired but unaccomplished. This exhaustion is not from effort, it is from wasted attention. Strong environments focus energy and convert effort into visible progress. Cutting ties requires honesty. You must be willing to admit what is holding you back. Not everything familiar is supportive. Not every relationship is constructive. Not every space is neutral. Some are quietly sabotaging your potential. Recognizing this truth is uncomfortable, but ignoring it is costly. Environment also shapes belief. When you are surrounded by people who settle, settling begins to feel inevitable. When you are surrounded by people who strive, striving feels natural. Exposure matters. Proximity influences ambition. The closer you are to strength, the more strength you absorb. This is why intentional isolation can be powerful. Temporarily removing yourself from weak influence allows clarity to return. In that space, you rediscover your standards. You hear your own thoughts. Without interruption, you rebuild discipline without resistance. Isolation is not the goal, but it can be a bridge to a stronger environment. Once your environment changes, behavior follows. Habits align, focus sharpens, motivation becomes unnecessary because structure supports action. What once required constant effort becomes routine. This is not luck, it is alignment. A powerful life cannot be built in a place that constantly pulls you backward. You do not rise by fighting gravity, you rise by removing weight. When you cut ties with weak environments, you give strength room to grow and discipline space to breathe. Do it again, and then do it again until there is no separation between action and who you are. Real transformation does not come from intensity, it comes from repetition. One powerful effort can inspire you, but only repeated effort can change you. Identity is not formed by what you do once when motivation is high. It is formed by what you do consistently when nothing is watching and nothing feels exciting. Repetition is the process through which discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like nature. Most people quit too early, not because they lack ability, but because they misunderstand how identity is built. They expect immediate results, instant confidence, or visible rewards. When these do not appear, they assume something is wrong. In reality, nothing is wrong. The work is simply still becoming you. Identity changes slowly, quietly, through repeated proof. Each repetition is a vote for the person you are becoming. At first, discipline feels artificial. You force yourself to act. You remind yourself, you push through resistance. This phase discourages many people because it feels unnatural. But this discomfort is temporary. With repetition, the brain rewires. What once required effort begins to require less. Eventually, it feels strange not to act. This is the moment discipline shifts from behavior to identity. When repetition becomes identity, excuses lose their power. You no longer argue with yourself about whether to act. The question disappears. Action happens because that is who you are. A disciplined person does not need to feel disciplined. A focused person does not need to chase focus. Identity handles what motivation cannot. Repetition also builds trust with yourself. Every time you repeat a behavior, you reinforce a promise kept. Over time, this consistency creates inner certainty. You stop doubting whether you will follow through. You already know the answer. This certainty is confidence, and confidence is one of the strongest forces a person can carry. People often look for breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are usually just the visible result of invisible repetition. What looks sudden to others was built slowly through habits no one applauded. Repetition compounds quietly. One action seems small. 10 feel routine. 100 feel automatic. At 1,000, it defines you. Identity is powerful because it removes friction. When something is part of who you are, it no longer feels like sacrifice. You do not debate it. You do not resent it. You simply live it. This is why repetition matters more than motivation. Motivation fades. Identity endures. Repetition also sharpens skill. Each cycle refines execution. Mistakes are corrected. Efficiency increases. Confidence deepens. What was once clumsy becomes precise. What was once exhausting becomes manageable. Skill built through repetition creates pride, and pride reinforces identity. Many people repeat the wrong things without realizing it. They repeat avoidance. They repeat distraction. They repeat excuses. Over time, those patterns also become identity. This is why repetition is newt, real but powerful. It will shape you whether you choose consciously or drift passively. Awareness turns repetition into a weapon instead of a liability. When you choose repetition intentionally, progress becomes inevitable. You may not feel it day to day, but it is happening. Identity shifts are subtle until they are undeniable. One day you realize you are no longer trying to be disciplined. You simply are. The struggle that once dominated your mind no longer exists. Repetition also builds resilience. When you repeat action under different conditions, you learn to perform regardless of mood, stress, or uncertainty. This adaptability strengthens identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs perfect conditions. You see yourself as someone who functions under pressure. There is humility in repetition. It accepts that mastery is earned, not granted. It respects process over ego. This humility protects you from shortcuts and keeps you grounded in effort. Over time, humility becomes quiet confidence, the kind that does not need validation. Identity built through repetition is stable. It does not collapse when motivation drops or when circumstances change. It holds because it is reinforced by history. You have evidence. You have consistency. You have proof. A powerful life is not built by dramatic moments. It is built by repeated ones. The same action done again and again until it no longer feels chosen but expressed. When repetition becomes identity, discipline stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Give yourself an order and obey it without negotiation. A powerful life begins the moment you stop treating your own commands as optional. Most people fail not because they lack knowledge, opportunity, or potential, but because they hesitate when it is time to act. They bargain with fatigue, debate with fear, and delay under the disguise of logic. Self-command without mercy is the refusal to entertain excuses once a decision has been made. It is the discipline to act immediately when your inner authority speaks. Negotiation with the self is the birthplace of weakness. Every time you argue with yourself, you fracture authority. One part gives the order, another part resists, and chaos follows. Over time, the resisting voice grows stronger because it keeps winning. Commanding yourself without mercy restores hierarchy. One voice leads. One voice decides. One voice moves the body forward. Mercy toward excuses feels kind in the moment, but it is cruel in the long run. Each time you let yourself off the hook, you weaken trust with yourself. You teach your mind that promises can be broken, and standards can bend. That lesson compounds. Eventually, even important commitments feel negotiable. Inner authority collapses quietly, and with it goes confidence. Self-command is not harshness, it is clarity. It removes confusion about what must be done. When the command is clear, hesitation disappears. You do not need to feel motivated. You do not need to feel ready. You move because movement was ordered. This simplicity is powerful. It conserves energy that would otherwise be wasted on internal debate. People who command themselves without mercy appear calm under pressure. This calm is not accidental. It is built through repeated obedience to their own standards. They trust themselves because they have evidence. When difficulty appears, they do not panic because they know they will act regardless of discomfort. That certainty creates composure. Fear loses influence when self-command is strong. Fear thrives on delay and doubt. Immediate action starves it. When the body moves, the mind follows. When action begins, fear shrinks. This is why commanding yourself without mercy is an antidote to anxiety. You stop asking what might happen and start doing what must happen. This principle also sharpens integrity. Integrity is alignment between word and action. Each time you follow your own command, alignment strengthens. Each time you disobey yourself, integrity weakens. Over time, this alignment becomes character. Character becomes presence. Presence commands respect without effort. Self-command does not require cruelty, but it does require firmness. There is a difference. Cruelty punishes. Firmness enforces. You do not insult yourself. You do not demean yourself. You simply expect obedience to the standards you chose. Standards without enforcement are meaningless. Enforcement is what turns intention into reality. Many people wait for external pressure to force them into action. Deadlines, consequences, or criticism push them forward. Powerful individuals do not wait. They apply pressure internally. They do not need an audience. They do not need urgency created by fear of loss. Their discipline functions in silence. Commanding yourself without mercy also eliminates procrastination. Procrastination is not laziness, it is disobedience disguised as delay. When commands are enforced immediately, procrastination has no space to exist. Action follows thought closely, and momentum builds naturally. This rule also builds emotional resilience. When you consistently act, despite discomfort, emotions lose control.
They still exist, but they no longer dictate behavior.
You feel tired and move, you feel uncertain and act, you feel resistance and proceed anyway. Over time, emotions stop escalating because they learn they are not in charge. The body responds to self-command. Posture improves, energy sharpens, movement becomes decisive. There is a physical presence that emerges when internal authority is intact. People sense it, not because you speak louder, but because you hesitate less.
Self-command requires responsibility.
You cannot blame circumstances when you are the one giving orders. This responsibility is heavy at first, but it is also freeing. When you accept full command, excuses disappear. So does helplessness. You stop waiting for permission, validation, or perfect conditions. Many people confuse kindness to the self with leniency. True kindness is discipline. It is holding yourself to standards that protect your future. Mercy toward weakness today becomes cruelty toward your future self. Firmness today becomes freedom tomorrow. When you command yourself without mercy, identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who acts. That shift changes everything. Decisions become faster. Doubt fades. Progress accelerates. A life governed by self-command does not drift. It moves deliberately. It does not collapse under pressure. It responds with action. When you give yourself an order and follow it every time, you become unstoppable, not because life is easy, but because you are in control. This is the final truth. Discipline is not something you add to your life. It is something you decide to become. A powerful life is not built by luck, talent, or motivation. It is built by standards you refuse to lower, actions you repeat daily, pain you accept willingly, and commands you enforce without mercy. Every rule you heard today points to one reality. You are either leading yourself or you are being led by comfort, emotion, and environment. From this moment forward, understand that every excuse weakens you and every decisive action strengthens you. The life you want is not far away. It is waiting on your obedience to yourself. When you decide once, control your mornings, act without emotion, accept temporary pain, guard your mind, cut weak environments, repeat until identity forms, and command yourself without negotiation, something irreversible happens. You stop hoping for power and start embodying it. Do not leave this message inspired. Leave it resolved. Let discipline become automatic. Let action become immediate. Let your standards become law, because the world does not bend for potential. It yields to those who are disciplined enough to claim control and powerful enough to never give it back